the head. I give you this first block of plasticine. If you want more of this, I have it here for sale. If you want to go buy your own, you have to go to New York to get this stuff. But there are local places that sell other brands that I don't like. But this is good stuff, and I have most of the materials and all the tools you'll need. You shouldn't really have to buy anything unless you decide you're gonna start carving stone and you want to get yourself a piece of stone. Okay? So, first thing I want to do is make the head. And to make the head, I want to start with a ball about the size of a walnut. If you make your head too big, you're not going to have enough material to make this person. And if you make it too small, you're going to be bumming out when I show you how to make a face on it, because you're not going to be able to make one in this tiny little area. All right, so I'm going to take my walnut-sized ball and roll it into an egg. Make an egg shape. Amazingly, there's a lot of people that don't know what eggs look like. So you can always ask me if you don't know if your egg looks like an egg. But there's an egg shape. And I'm going to pinch it a little bit on the temples so it's a little bit narrower. So this is my head. Okay. So the next thing down is going to be the neck. Each piece I make gives me the size and the proportion for the next thing I have to make. In this instance, what we're doing is we're making what we call a boneless figure. That's a figure without an armature. The armature is the wire support you see in some of these figures that's sticking out of them in places. As we go forward, I'll show you how to make the wire support for standing people. But now this is going to be a boneless person. So that means the person has to be either sitting, kneeling, or lying down. No hands up in the air, no legs dangling off the edge of things. We're going to mount this onto a flat piece of plywood at the end, so try not to have those things. All right, so I want to make my neck. I'm going to make a post for the neck. Guys are not going to want to try to keep up with me because it's going to go pretty fast and you're going to be looking at your hands. You can play with it and stuff, but just try to watch. There's a lot of steps. So for the neck, I want my post to be the height of the head and the width of the face. This seems very wide, but there's a lot of squishing and blending that's going to happen. And if I start with a thinner neck, I'm going to have a little pencil underneath there. So attach these things. Try to avoid making a lollipop. Don't make a lollipop. Try really hard not to make a dinosaur. Don't make a dinosaur. Try to get your chin and your cranium coming off an equal amount from the neck. And then blend this up. This is not water-based clay. It doesn't need scoring. It doesn't need slip. It doesn't need any kind of a glue. It's just the warmth itself that will bind these things together when you blend them. This is my assistant Eve, everybody.
Hi, Eve.
All right. So now I have a neck and I have a head. Next thing down is going to be the shoulders. I'm going to make this whole person out of tubes like this. Lots of them. Different sizes. But none of them are going to be as thick as the neck. These tubes should be about half the thickness of the neck. All right, and then put this right on the back and blend it in so it's in a line with the neck, right in the front, so it's not sticking off the back. Head, neck, shoulders. Next thing down is the spine. Make another tube. This should be the height of these three things I've just put together. Head, neck, and shoulders. And then we're just going to blend that right onto the back. Blend it in so it's in a line with the neck. There's my spine. All right, now we're just going to make hips down at the bottom.
Looks easy.
So simple. Slap it together. We'll be doing this in no time. All right, so my hips, same length as the shoulders. And those are just going to go right down the bottom. So this is where all my gesture lives. This is where my person moves, shoulders, hips, and spine. If I bend the neck and the spine to make this long S, that makes something called Praxiteles curve. A Greek sculptor that figured out that when you stood with your weight on one hip, that shoulder lowered and this shoulder raised up. And it makes this kind of S curve from your neck down through your hips. And it sounds kind of obvious now, but there was a time when this was groundbreaking sculpture knowledge. So, but we all use that today, and we call it contrapuntal posture, and we just take it for granted when we consider drawing or sculpting or painting a person. But there was a time when it wasn't so obvious. All right, now the next thing I want is a coil that's going from the bony part of the clavicle, sternum, this T, all the way down through the sternum, down to the hips. So we're making space for the chest cavity, for the organs, for things we don't necessarily have to sculpt, but they still need a place theoretically to live. And this piece should be from the shoulders to the hips. Same length as the spine. So we're just going to stick it right here. And we're going to make a little football shape. All right, so now I want to fill this inside cavity so it doesn't collapse. Anytime you leave hollow spaces in this stuff and it's kind of warm, it'll just slowly kind of melt down onto itself. There we go, exactly. Some more bulk to the belly. Yeah, and now what I'll do is take this skinny guy and I'm going to add more of these coils all the way around. We're going to make this football shape right here. That way, sideways, all the way around. So all these coils are the same from the shoulder to the hip. Jam them in. Later on when we have armatures, hey Gail.
Hey.
Later on when there's armatures and wire inside, we'll have a different way of applying and building up a figure. This is just a way of doing it.
Does making the torso with the strips instead of starting with the larger thing make it easier to mold, or maybe adjust or put it inside?
Well, this keeps it in proportion. As you go forward and you make more of these things and you get more comfortable with how big things are and how they're supposed to look, you may not have to use this. And when there's wire inside, the wire has the proportion. So you don't have to do this with the armature. There's a lot of shortcuts into this. But most people don't know how big to make something and how long to make something. And this is a method of control because all of these pieces are the same. And you end up with this little turtle person every single time. All right, so speaking of turtle person. Next thing down, we're going to do the legs because this person does not have armature. So the legs are going to help me get it into the position I want it to be in, and then I can come back up and do the arms. I can't make somebody doing a handstand because this stuff won't support itself. So the legs are going to be more important than the arms in this case. So for the legs, we do the legs in two sections. Our hip to knee and knee to foot. So hip to knee being your thigh, that's pretty massive. You don't see that because it's way down there underneath you, but it takes two thighs to make one torso. So however big your torso is, your thigh is half that wide. So we're gonna make the thigh out of 3 coils like a camera tripod for stability. And all of these coils are the same length. They're all from the shoulder to the hip. Start by make your people as if they're sitting, and then you can get them into whatever position you want them in once your thighs are on there. So start with the first coil in the middle. And I'm going to give you a handout with all these steps, so don't panic. Second coil goes right here on top of that little L shape right there. See that? And it overlaps and crosses at the knee.
Is that how the muscles actually work?
Well, it's an approximation. It's enough that you'll see. Let's see. And my third post goes right here, sticking off to the side. And then I'm going to fold it in so that post goes on the inside of the thigh. What this is giving me isn't so much the muscles, but the angles and planes that the muscles make. So it's not a representation of the musculature, but the result of the musculature, if that makes any sense. So now I have this little cage, and just like with the torso, I'm going to fill that cage and keep all that from collapsing down. I do a couple of things. I pick it up and I put it down for a couple of reasons. When I put it down, it gives it a chance to cool off a little bit. And when I pick it up and work with it, it keeps me from making the back flat by pressing it down onto the table. Every action has an opposite reaction. It's especially so with this soft stuff. If you push in one side, something pops out on the other side. And a lot of times I have a class at my own school where we have a live model come in. And a lot of my students will do that. They'll push and push and push things. And then when I turn the model and they turn the sculpture, they got all stuff popping out and they got to push and push and push that. And they just do that all night long, back and forth, back and forth. It's hard to break out of that pattern. Later on, I can make this look like skin. I can smooth it all out and do all that kind of stuff that you really want to do with it. But you don't want to do that too soon, because you will trick yourself into thinking that that surface is the finished surface. And you may not see something that's wrong. All right, so that gives me a thigh. I need to put a rear end on. Make a ball, flatten it out. Point your person at the sky and plop that right on there, and then blend it to the back and to the leg so it holds that in place. You should not have a big thing popping out on the back there. You really want it. All right. Let's make another leg real quick. Keep measuring these things as you go, because it's very easy for one piece to get bigger than the other, and then you'll pinch something longer to match that, and then all of a sudden one leg's out here and the leg's like this. So just keep measuring as you go, and that way you won't go wrong. Okay, once again inside that little L, and overlap at the knee. Once I get this thigh made, I can start getting my person into a position that I want them to be in. Just gonna fill the rest of this cage. And next thing. Today we won't do the head or hands or feet. I'll just have placeholders there. I'll show you all that stuff next week. I don't want to overload you with too much. The head is a separate thing, and we'll learn how to do that. And you'll have time to practice with the heads before you tackle these guys. Okay. All right, now some rear end, and then we can get to the next thing. There are tools. There are lots of tools. Over here on this cabinet is magnetic tools on the board. There's the white tray with wood tools and plastic tools and wire tools. If you feel like you need a tool, you know, go get a tool. There's no law against it. They're there for you to use. But you can also use your can to slice some plasticine like that.
Oh.
Okay, so you can do that if you need to cut it up, and you don't have to hack at it or claw at it and stuff, you know. Okay, so now that I have this much of my person, I have a little dais, a little stand, so I can see him at eye level. Over there under that table, there's spools. So you guys, when you get to a point where you can see the thing elevated, you can get a spool so you can lift it up. Try not to flatten them onto the table. I've seen people that just keep squishing them down and they get longer and longer and longer, and flat pancake people. Don't do that. All right, so now I can give my person some kind of gesture. Make him look like he's moving or doing something. Start with something like that. Pay attention. Okay, there we go. All right. I'm going to make a couple of marks. I'm making 2 X's. See those 2 X's? Yeah? Everybody see those 2 X's? Yeah? Okay, these are 2 points on the hip. The top X is the top of your hip. That's your iliac. If you dig your elbow in, you'll feel it right there. That's your iliac. Right? The bottom one, that's your trochanter. The wide part of your lower hip. That's where your femur connects through the knob into the pelvis. That's called the trochanter. There's a greater and a lesser, but what you need to know is just where it is. That's where that exits. And why do you need to know these 2 points on the hip? Because they give us the next 2 measurements we need for arms and legs. So first, from the trochanter to the knee is the knee to the foot. So now I can make a coil and match that up to that length right there, from the trochanter to the knee, and that will give me that part of the lower leg. Stick that on right there. Now we'll make another side. Once again, measure to the previous one, and we can add that on as well. So we're just going to do placeholders today for hands and feet, so I'm just going to add some little tabs for those things. Now we can come up and work on the arms. The iliac, being right here where your elbow is, means that from your shoulder to your iliac is the distance from your shoulder to your elbow. So now I can measure the upper arm based on that measurement. In this case, I measure from the back of the spine because I have a curve to the shoulders. And I can measure from here right down to that point and make sure that the upper arm is the right length. And then I'll attach this by overlapping a bit. Now, if I bend my arm up, you can see that the shoulder to elbow is the same as the elbow to the middle of the hand. So now I can measure the elbow to the middle of the hand. A little pad for the hand and measure it right there. It gives me that correct proportion. Stick that there. Let's do the other side. We're in the home stretch, folks, in the home stretch. Won't be long now. That's a little muscular. Okay, so there's some things missing, right? Like what are these big holes back there? You don't have those.
Wing bones.
That'd be crazy. We're missing some things. What we're missing is lats, traps, and pecs.
What's
Latissimus dorsi,
lats? Thank you.
yeah, trapezius, the traps up here, and your pectoral muscles, your chest muscles. So think of there's a lot of complicated stuff going on in your back, but think of it as a shorthand like an old-fashioned kite. It's got a long lower part and then a short upper part. Try to picture that in your head. These lats, I'm going to start with the lats. They go from the outside of the shoulders diagonally into the middle of the back. So we're going to make one of those on this side. All right, there's one side of that. And do one on the other side now. Now we'll make some traps and trapezius muscles. Gotta have these so your head doesn't fall off when you look at something. Okay. Okay, we get one on that side. There we go. We make the pecs, the chest muscle, the same way we made the gluteus on the back side. Make a ball, flatten it out. It's going to connect to the shoulder, along the sternum, and underneath on the rib cage. There. Let's make the other side. All right, finally, there's some holes in the back here I have. That's where your scapula lives, your shoulder blade. Now, your shoulder blade is connected with a lot of cartilage and it moves around when you move your arms around. So when you pull your arm back, your shoulder blade flips over and it makes a big bump on your back. When you reach forward, your shoulder blade slides forward and it makes kind of a rounded area. This guy's arm is back a little bit, so this right shoulder blade should be popping out a little bit more than the other one. So I'm just going to put a chunk on for that and shape that in here to make that bumpy little shoulder blade. And the other side shouldn't be so big. All right, now there's some things missing. I can get into what's missing now on the arms and legs. We're missing some muscle. Let's start with the leg muscles and the calves. Behind your shin, you have a couple of big bumps back there. Those are your gastrocnemius muscles. And we make those just with some little coils. The inside one's a little shorter than the outside, and they're diagonally behind the shin. I'm just making the ones you can see. This is an illusion of reality. So I don't have to worry about things that are out of view and hidden. Nobody will ever see those. You should tell them they're there. All right. So this gives me some calf muscles. Okay. Now I need some arm muscles. I want biceps on my triceps. These long coils, I'm going to let them be the tricep, and then I'm going to add a little bicep muscle on top of that, depending on how much it's popping out. And this guy's not doing anything too strenuous, so it doesn't have to be too exaggerated. Just put these on here. I'll give me a little muscle on that side. Add some here. Dead left. See. So now that I have my biceps on my arms, I want to add deltoids. Deltoids are the outside of the shoulders up here. And these are a bunch of sausage-like muscles that go right over your arm. And we're just going to make these like a bunch of little sausages. Just going to put them right on top here. We can define out, this is a male figure I'm making. You're making a female figure and she's not supposed to be totally buff, you know, don't make these coils too big. Likewise, if you want to make a male figure and don't want them all muscular, you're in control of how big these muscles get or how small they are. So it's up to you to make these people. I will be teaching you how to do clothing, and we'll do hair, we'll do wrinkles and stuff, how to do faces and all kinds of things as we go forward. At some point, you will need to have ideas, especially for your standing people. This guy just has to be sitting, kneeling, or lying down. But after that, you know, we add a degree of difficulty called originality to it. So, but for now, you can just kind of do this thing. So here's a basic figure. There's no wire in here, but I can still move this person around if I want to. If I'm very gentle with this guy, I could probably make him lie down. I could put him into a reclining position maybe. See if I can bend him this way and that. But because there's no wire, it's much more difficult to do this than it will be once you get the wire inside. So don't stress yourself out too much about what your person's doing. And, you know, you can come up with something simple or complicated. It's up to you. This now he's lying down, so he's taking steps. All right. Now let's get a last look, because he's going to go back in the can. So get a last look. Now remember, at this point, you can smooth it out, you can make it all nice looking and stuff. There's a lot you can do once you get the basic figure here. And we'll be working on these for another couple of weeks till they're done. You take them away. So don't you know, get too impatient with yourself.